Hi, welcome to Opsrace training programs. We were discussing about the APIs for everyone, and we were talking about different stack of protocols. Now we are interested in HTTP and HTTPS. That's very close to the type of API we want to learn. Okay. So what is HTTP protocol? So this is called hypertext transfer protocol. Now what is hypertext? So this is a text that is really very hyper. Okay. Here is an example. This is a very simple and ordinary text, whereas this is a hypertext which contains some formatting, some cosmetic changes over here. So this is a hypertext. This is a simple text. In order to make a text hyper, we can use these tags. So B for bold, so we will make this hyper bold, we'll make this special red using the font tag. And if we want to make something italic, we can use the I tag. So that's how we turned a very simple text into hypertext. And the technique that we used, or you can say the language we used, is hypertext markup language. So you must have heard about HTML. So this is just the HTML, which has a special meaning for the browser. So here it may seem like a simple text, but when browser will render this thing, it will transform it into a very beautiful content, which is a hypertext. Okay, so when this machine needs to talk to the server, it has to make the HTTP request. HTTP request is usually made to get the HTML content. Then server process the content and return the result. So this communication happened through this packet. So this is HTTP packet enclosed within the TCP packet. TCP packet is enclosed in the IP packet. It reaches there, then it processes the data, it prepare the data, and then again it packages it again and responds as a response packet. Okay, so HTTP request typically look like this. So you need the domain name or the address, the host name, which is basically opsrace.com. This will take us to that specific server, that specific machine, and the method we will use get. I will explain them later. And the endpoint. So if I want to access, let's say, login, so opsrace.com/login/logout, or I can just type front/ and that's it. I just need to access the home page. This request will have two part, or the HTTP packet has two part. One is the header, which contains the header information, and then the body, which contains the payload, the actual data. So this header tells us about the actual data. It can also instruct the server about certain things. So here it is trying to tell the server, I would accept only English language. So if the server has to translate the website into Arabic, maybe German, maybe French or English, so it says that I need the language in English. That's the default language. If your operating system is an English language, your browser will always request for the English unless you change your default language for the browser. Okay, so what is packet? This is packet, which contains header and body. So this is another real world example. So this is a packet. It contains some data. Do you know what that data is? Can you guess? Yes, you are wrong. It's not milk. It is basically orange juice. Okay. And similarly, we can have milk as well. So this outer packaging will tell us about what is inside, what is the type of data, or what is enclosed in this packet. So header will always help us. Here the header is this outer coating, which will give us the idea like what is this about. So we don't have to open this Tetra Pak, or we have to taste it, this Tetra Pak, in order to understand what type of data is. The header will work always. Header is like a metadata. It tells data, it tells information about the data, what is inside. Okay, so let's look at another example. So this is a packet as well. What is this about? We don't know. if it is shown here, it will be really great. So I want to go to Paris, and is this bus going to the Paris? So I will get inside the bus. I will ask the people if this bus is going to the Paris, and I have to use another mechanism to understand where this bus is going and what is the number of this bus. What if this information is displayed on the header? So this is its head. Here the information is displayed. It goes to 8 a.m. and it will reach at 11 p.m. Berlin to Budapest via Prague, and this is the bus number. Now looking at this header information, I would understand what this packet is about. Let's look at another example. So can you guess where this bus is going? Okay, so this is an LGS school trip. It's an annual trip. They are going to Naran, and this is the bus number. Again, the data basically is inside the packet, and the information about the data is placed in the header. We usually use lot of stacks, as I explained previously. The information is contained in one packet, and then that packet is placed inside another packet, and then in another packet. So here, this is our information, this is our data, which is inside the bus. This is a very simple example. We'll look at a very complex example here. This is an animation. You can search on YouTube. It's really great video. I would request all of you to watch this video from NASA, the animation related how people can land on the moon and the new technology that has been used. So this is our data. This need to be transferred from the Earth to the moon. So there would involve multiple phases. So first they need to be placed in a closed vicinity, which is indestructible, which is strong, which is heat proof, and then we need a service module. So this is the data is inside it. This is one packet. This packet is placed on another packet. This is a service module which will provide the oxygen, which will cooling down the equipment. It will do a lot of things that is required in order to transfer this data to the moon. And then we need a launch abort system. So this system will help the astronauts, the people inside here, to leave the Earth, and if there is some problem, they can abort this mission at any time. So this will help them in the launching and aborting of the mission. Then we have a cargo hold to protect whatever is inside this thing, and it can also attach to this launch cylinder, which will have some fuel, which have some other equipment as well. In order to get more thrust, more push, so we need rocket boosters, so which will be attached to this core staging area. Now we can already see that our information is somewhere here. So there are packets inside packets inside packets, and there are other protocols. So all these different parts, all these different protocol will help them in the journey from Earth to the moon. And we also need the launching pad, which will help us to push this rocket into the space. So as soon as thrusters are on, they fire up, they will take our data to the space. So once it reaches at a certain height, these rockets will be separated from the main module. Now these are these has pushed us into the space. So they had fought with the gravity to take them away from the Earth, because Earth attract everything. So these boosters helped us to defy the gravity, go into outer space. Now finally this part will also detach, because it has burned a lot of fuel, lot of things. So this part will then detach. Now this is our packets. Again, this is packet within a packet. Finally this part is also removed, and now we have only this specific section here. So finally this packet will go in the orbit of the moon, and it will attach to a space station. or it may land on the moon. There is a process you can look at in the video in more detail, and then fly back to the earth. And when it's coming back, this part is detached. So this part was really important to bring them back, and now our people are inside, our astronauts are inside it, because it's coming back. So it's traveling back to its journey, and then finally this land on the earth with parachute, etc. So I hope you understood the concept, how these packets within the packets work. So they are just HTTP packets which just take your data to the server or bring back from the server. They just use different names to create different convention. There is really no difference at all, but they have certain convention that we will use get for a specific type of action, post for another type of action. So if you need to send the data, you can use the body part. So your payload, your data would be in the body, and the information about this body, this data will be kept in the header. So when server receive this packet, or the browser or the web server when receive this packet from the header, they will understand it is an HTML, it is an image, it is a video, it is a movie, or whatever the data is inside. The header will tell us about that. So these are 5 very important, very famous method to send the data. So actually there is no difference, except get does not support body and delete does not support body, whereas post, put and patch support body. So this could be a Felix bus, this could be a Newcon, this could be another bus. So there are 3 different types of buses, no difference in them, just the name, because they all are manufactured by the same company, which is HTTP protocol. There is no difference at all, it's just different names that are used for the convention. I will explain that. Okay, so if these do not support body, so how would I send the data? Then you can use you can put the data on top of the bus. That's how you can travel. I will explain this later, but yes, let's look at again. So this is a request, which is a post request, and we want to post student. This is the URL, this is the endpoint, there is a header, there is a body, it will contain some information. What type of information is there? Header will tell us. Let's just imagine this is a very large object, this is a very big data which cannot travel through the networks. Then we have to split it down into smaller chunks. So we can split this whole complete packet into P1, P2, P3 and P4. And we already know there is a protocol, which is TCP protocol, that will help us take this data. So we'll use the TCP packet. So this is the TCP packet, which contains header and body. In the body we'll put P1, this is one chunk, and the header will contain the information, this is sequence number 1. Then we put another chunk into another TCP packet, and the third chunk into third packet, and the fourth chunk into the fourth TCP packet. Now this header contains the information what this data is about, and also other details as well. This packet itself is contained in the IP packet. I have already explained that the protocol always work in stack of protocols. So this packet is contained, this is HTTP partial packet is contained within the TCP, then TCP is contained within the IP packet. So IP packet contains here the IP address where this data will be delivered, and they don't care about what is inside it. So when this data is delivered, the TCP protocol will assemble all these packets. They will extract the data into it and convert it back to the HTTP packet, and then hand over to the server or to the browser. So this is TCP header, this is TCP body, this is IP header, this is IP body. Okay, so whenever we request a server we make an HTTP GET request. So whenever you type opsrace.com/enter, so this is a GET request by default. So all the requests that are initiated or triggered from the browser through the URL bar, they all are GET request. Server process the data and then responds with the data. While it is responding with the data, it also provides some information in the header, like your request has been accepted or your request was successfully processed. So that's why it is returning HTTP status code 200, which means okay. So this packet goes back with data as well as the header information. So when we type opsrace.com, so this hypertext is loaded, the color, the images, all this information is in the form of HTML. So when we made this request, so this is the Opsrace is the address of the server, get is the method, the technique we used, the endpoint was front slash, and our browser automatically put the language because there are couple of websites that are multilingual, that support multiple languages. So if you want the text to be Arabic, so you will just send here AR in German, DE or FR for the French. So the server will return the response and it will convert the content into that specific language if they support. If they do not support, then it would be plain simple English. So when we are making request, we haven't sent any data, and we know that GET does not support body. So we will only specify the URL. We made the hit, then the server responded us with the packet which contains some header information and some body. So in header it says that 200 okay. So the request has processed, this was the date, this was the server name, when this content was modified, the length of the content, what is the length of this content, and what is the type. So it is text/HTML, it could be text/JSON, it could be image, PNG, JPG, video file, audio file. So whatever is the content inside this packet, that will be mentioned here. So now it is telling us it is just simple text, which is HTML hypertext markup language. Because this is what browser understand. Browser will render it automatically in the heading format. Big bold welcome would be written on the white background. So this is request, this is a response. So this is HTTP request, this is HTTP response. Okay, so HTTP method we discussed about as post. Although they all are same, but there is a convention. Whenever we want to save some information on the server, we will use the method post to save it. If we want to read, if we want to fetch some data, simple plain fetching, we will use get to read the data, and we'll use put to update the data. So there is a data, existing data on the server, and you want to update that, so you will use update. So maybe this is first time you create the Facebook profile, you would use the post to save your data. To view your profile, you will use the get method, and to update your profile, you may use put method. And if you want to delete your profile, that data, you can use the delete method. So these are simple delete method, which is basically a tag. So these work as a tag. So this packet has to work in context with these keywords. Okay, now I'm going to talk about CRUD, which is basically a terminology used by programmers. So usually a record has to be created, or it has to be read, or you have to update it, or finally you can delete it. So these are 4 different type of operation that usually happen on a record, on an entity, on a system. Okay, now another terminology is resources. So if we look at the ride hailing example, car is a resource, driver is a resource, passenger, booking, trip, payment, fine, commission, promo code, and credit card, these all are resources. So if we combine these resources and these operation, and we also know that HTTP support different types of methods, so combining these all, we can create a new API, a new protocol, which is a resource API. So if we want to access student, this is a resource, so we will use /students. So it should be plural because that's the protocol is about REST API, which says that whenever you have to access a resource, whenever you want to talk about a specific resource, use these plural names. So for car, we are using cars. If we want to delete a car whose ID is 10, so we will issue this, we'll hit this URL with delete keyword /cars and /10. Now this is the payload, this is the data which is on top of the bus. So we are sending this information within the URL. If we all combine this, so this is REST API, which is a representational state transfer. It basically represent state of a resource. So if I want to create a car, I will just use post /cars. It will create the information that I will send. If I want to get all the cars, I will use get cars. If I want to fetch only one car, so I will use get with ID of that specific car. If I want to update that car data, so I will use put /cars. And if I want to partially update, maybe color of the car, maybe engine number or something which is a partial change, not a full object change, I will use patch for that. And finally, if you want to delete a resource, you will use the delete keyword. If you remember, I previously told you all these HTTP methods are almost same. It's just the convention that we will use delete whenever we want to delete a record. You can perfectly delete a record by using get as well. This is basically your code, your control. So you can, if somebody hit this URL, you will just simply delete that record. You can do it, but this is not the convention. This is not the expectation. Because the expectation is when I use get /car/ID, it will get me the car. Okay. And if I want to update that information, I will use put. So these are convention, these are standard. So REST says that if you want to perform certain operation on a resource, then you can use these different methods. Okay, again we'll look at this example of our HTTP request and response. So Opsrace is our host name. The method we are going to use is post, and the endpoint we want to hit is students. Here I'm sending some information in the request packets. I'm saying that I'm accepting English language. The content that I'm sending you is text/JSON. So this is a textual data which is in the form of JSON JavaScript notation. So this is the type, this is the format of data that is broadly used by all the applications. So they all understand JSON format. So this is a simple data format where you define the key and its value. So here we have defined the name and the value. Here we have defined the roll number and the value, the address and the value, and the phone number and the value. So this is a simple data that we are sending. We want to save it. Why? Because we have mentioned the method post. So whenever we post the data, we expect that this data will be saved. And in response, server will return us some data. It will tell us, okay, everything is successful. This was the date. I'm also returning you the JSON data. Here it has appended an ID. So maybe when server save this data, it may assign a specific ID to this person, the student. It has also mentioned the created date. This is the timestamp that server has embedded, server has associated with this record. That's everything. So this is the API, this is the endpoint, this is the request. You send some data, in response it will give you some data. Now you can use all these methods in different ways to receive and send data. In the next episode, we'll look at how the Postman tool works and how we can see some APIs in action. I hope you like this session. I hope it makes sense to you. If not, please comment below. Thank you. See you in the next lecture.